Today I want to tell you something that has always amazed me about my grandmother. Something that even now, so many years later, is still a topic of conversation whenever someone sees her photos or remembers her in a family chat. My grandmother had skin that looked like porcelain, soft, luminous, and almost wrinkle-free, even when she had already surpassed 90 years. I'm not exaggerating. While other people her age battled age spots, dryness, or deep lines, she maintained that clear tone, that smooth texture, and an expression that seemed to stop the passage of time. I clearly remember those afternoons when I would accompany her for walks around the neighborhood. People would stop her in the street to ask what she did to keep her skin like that. Even much younger folks couldn't help but look at her in wonder. And she always answered with a shy smile, as if downplaying the matter. But I, having spent so many years by her side, knew that behind that smile were habits, secrets, and ways of living that made all the difference. For a long time, both my family and I wondered what her real secret was. Could it have been genetics? A miracle cream? Or perhaps a blend of small choices she made every day, year after year? The truth, which I discovered over time, surprised me. It wasn't a single thing. It was a set of simple yet powerful habits that she followed without fail. Little daily gestures that today, after all these years, I understand were responsible for that special look she had. And that is exactly what I want to share with you in this video. Because I know that many people, just like me, are looking for natural and authentic ways to care for their skin, to age with dignity, and to feel good in their own skin without resorting to expensive products or aggressive treatments. So, if you've ever wondered how you can keep your skin healthier, younger, and with that special glow, stay with me, because I'm going to reveal every one of the secrets my grandmother practiced throughout her life. And before we continue, I want to ask you a question. How old are you? And from what part of the world are you watching me? I'd love to read your answers in the comments and learn a little more about you. Now then, let's get started. Jack. When I close my eyes and think of her, the first image that comes to mind is her face. A soft, ivory-colored face, with a luminosity that seemed natural, as if her skin emitted its own light. She didn't have that sickly pallor we sometimes see in older people, but rather an even, warm tone, almost as if her skin had been caressed by sunlight, yet without the time-etched marks the sun typically leaves. Her skin was thin, yes, but firm. It wasn't as taut as that of a young person, of course, but it also didn't show those deep wrinkles that many associate with old age. She had lines, naturally, but they were gentle, like small expression marks that told her story without stealing her beauty. Something that always caught my attention was how it reflected light. Even on the cloudiest days, her skin seemed to carry that natural glow, as if time hadn't managed to dim it. Her cheeks maintained a slight blush, and when she smiled, it was impossible not to notice how her skin moved. Softly, without rigidity, without that dryness many people feel after 70 or 80 years. I vividly recall the reactions of those who knew her. Every time we went somewhere together, whether to the market, to church, or simply for a walk in the park, there was always someone who made the same comment. But how can she have skin like that at her age? Some women, much younger than she, would approach her confidentially, as if searching for a miracle trick they could replicate. And she, amid laughter, would say, "Oh dear, I suppose I just always took care of myself," but without obsessing. Then she would change the subject, downplaying it. But I knew that behind that answer lay so much more. One of the scenes I have etched in my memory is seeing her in front of the mirror every morning and every night. I was just a little girl, and I liked to sit in a corner of the bathroom to watch her perform her care ritual. First, she'd wash her face with lukewarm water. She always said not too cold, not too hot. Then, with slow, gentle movements, she'd apply a bit of her usual cream, which she kept in a small glass jar, as if it were a treasure. She didn't use heavy makeup or expensive products, just a touch of compact powder and a hint of color on her lips if we were going out. And yet, her skin seemed more vibrant than that of many women who spent fortunes on cosmetics. Once, while watching her apply her cream, I couldn't help asking, "Grandma, "Why is your skin so beautiful?" She smiled, looked at me through the mirror, and replied something I never forgot. "Because I care for it as if it were a garden, every single day, without missing one." That phrase stuck with me, and over the years, I understood that her secret wasn't in one product or a magical recipe, but in small gestures repeated day after day, all her life. If there is one lesson my grandmother taught me about skincare, it was this: it's not what you do one day, it's what you do every day. For years, when I was younger, I thought it was enough to use a special cream once in a while or apply a mask once a month to take care of my skin. But watching her made me realize that the key wasn't in grand gestures, expensive treatments, or trendy products, but in consistency. In those small rituals she repeated each morning and each night, without fail, no excuses. My grandmother's routine always began the same way: lukewarm water. Never entirely cold, but not hot either. She said that water that's too hot damages the skin, drying it out and robbing it of life. So each morning, before even having breakfast, she washed her face with that gentle water as a first act of kindness toward herself. Next came the soap, but not just any soap. My grandmother used natural soaps, often homemade or bought at small local markets, oat, honey, or olive oil soaps. Nothing loaded with chemicals or artificial fragrances. She preferred simplicity, gentleness, things that respected the skin instead of assaulting it. While washing her face, she used circular, slow motions, as if giving a light massage. She never scrubbed hard or used rough sponges, only her hands and a delicacy she seemed to live by. She always said that the face's skin was like a fine fabric that needed to be handled with care. And then came her cream. It wasn't an expensive cream, or one with a complicated name. It was a homemade formula she prepared herself, or at most, a basic pharmacy cream. One that made no miraculous promises, but provided real hydration. She applied it with gentle tapping, never dragging, letting her skin absorb the moisture slowly. But perhaps the habit that marked me most was her golden rule: never, ever, ever go to sleep with your face dirty or with makeup on. My grandmother used very little makeup in her life: a bit of powder, a touch of blush, and on special occasions, a discreet lipstick. But even those days when she wore a bit of color, she always made sure to remove it completely before bed. "Sleeping with makeup is like letting your skin breathe in a room full of smoke," she told me. Even on the most tired nights, when she came home late from a gathering or just didn't have the energy, she never broke her routine. She'd sit before the mirror, take her natural soap, her lukewarm water, and dedicate a few minutes to cleanse her face. It was like a ritual to close the day, a moment for herself. And here is the big secret: consistency. My grandmother didn't do this just when she remembered or when she had the time. She did it every single day, for decades, rain or shine, cold or heat. And that discipline, that daily dedication, was one of the reasons her skin remained so healthy and beautiful even after she had turned 90. It's easy to fall into the temptation of quick fixes, to think that one expensive product can undo years of neglect. But the truth I learned from her is much simpler and much more powerful. True beauty is the result of small habits repeated throughout a lifetime. Another thing I remember most about my grandmother was her love of all things natural. While others her age began buying chemical-filled creams or famous brand products, she stayed loyal to her home remedies, those same ones she had learned from her mother and her grandmother before her. Her skin was not only the result of consistency, but also of the ingredients she chose to care for it. Simple ingredients we all have in our kitchens. One of her favorites was olive oil. Yes, that same oil she used for cooking. She always said that olive oil was like a balm for the skin, rich, nourishing, full of life. On the coldest nights, when her skin felt tight or dry, she'd put a few drops in the palm of her hands, rub them together to warm it, and then spread it on her face in slow, circular motions. I recall her saying, "Olive oil is like a hug for the skin. It feeds it from the outside. just as good bread nourishes you from the inside. And she was right. Her skin always woke up soft, supple, and with that natural glow that seemed impossible at her age. Another of her secrets was honey. From time to time, especially on days when she wanted extra softness, she'd make a little pure honey mask. She'd spread it on her face with delicate strokes and leave it on for 10 or 15 minutes while she did some household chores or simply rested. Honey didn't just provide hydration, it also helped calm her skin, keep irritations at bay, and maintain an even tone. She always called honey the sweet medicine for the skin. And then there was her favorite recipe for days when her face needed special care: milk with a few drops of rose water. She'd take some lukewarm milk, add a few drops of her homemade rose water made by steeping petals, and with a small cotton pad, she'd sweep the mixture over her face. It was like a homemade tonic, natural and supremely gentle. She told me this blend helped soothe her skin after exposure to sun or wind. "Nothing heals better than what nature gives you without asking for anything in return," she'd say. And of course, she always avoided products with artificial perfumes, colorants, or harsh chemicals. Whenever someone gifted her a strongly scented or ingredient-heavy cream, she'd thank them warmly, then tuck it away in a drawer. For her, less was more. To give you an idea, here's one of her most used homemade recipes: Grandma's Nourishing Mask. 1 teaspoon of pure honey, 1 teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil, a few drops of rose water, optional, but she always added it. Mix everything in a small bowl until you get a smooth paste. Then, using your fingertips, apply it to a clean face, avoiding the eye area. Leave it on for 10 to 15 minutes, then rinse off with lukewarm water. The result was always the same: more luminous, hydrated skin with an incredibly soft texture. If her example taught me anything, it was that you don't need to spend a fortune to have beautiful skin. You just need to care for yourself, with love, consistency, and ingredients that truly nourish. If there was one phrase my grandmother repeated time and again, it was, "The skin is a reflection of what you eat." And over the years, I had no doubt she was absolutely right. She always said that no cream, however good, could compensate for a poor diet. True skincare begins on the plate, not in the bathroom. Her diet, though simple, was full of foods that science today recognizes as authentic allies for youthful, beautiful skin. Each morning, the first thing she'd do upon waking was drink a glass of room-temperature water. She said that after sleeping, the body needed to wake up from within, and that first glass was like a bath for all her organs. Then, breakfast always included something fresh and natural: a piece of fruit, sometimes a juicy orange, other times a couple of plums, or in season, strawberries or melon. Fruits rich in antioxidants and vitamins that, without knowing it, gave her skin natural defenses against aging. Throughout the day, vegetables were always present. No meal was complete without a side of greens: spinach, carrots, tomatoes, zucchini, peppers, prepared simply, steamed, sautéed in a little olive oil, or in homemade soups. Speaking of soups, there was one dish that never failed to appear on her weekly menu: bone broth. That was one of her big secrets for keeping skin firm and elastic. Although back then no one talked about collagen like we do today, my grandmother knew that broth, simmered slowly for hours, was a gift to the body. She called it her elixir of strength and beauty. That thick, nutrient-rich broth provided not only energy, but also the proteins needed to maintain skin volume and firmness. Besides the broth, she also ate homemade natural gelatin without sugars or artificial colorings, sometimes made with fruit juice and a touch of honey. Another steadfast habit was avoiding fried and processed foods. She didn't like overly greasy dishes or industrial pastries. She wasn't a fan of too much salt either. She preferred homemade desserts, an apple compote, baked pears, or even a slice of whole grain bread with a bit of honey. And when it came to fats, hers were always healthy: olive oil, a bit of avocado, some walnuts or almonds, and occasionally oily fish, like sardines or mackerel. Without needing scientific studies, she knew these fats were good for nourishing skin from the inside. I remember her saying, Beautiful skin isn't built from the outside alone. You have to feed it from within every single day, no excuses. And now that I think about it, those small daily choices were a big part of her secret. So, if you're seeking healthier, more luminous skin with that porcelain-like appearance we so admired in my grandmother, start by looking at your plate. The food you choose today will be the skin you have tomorrow. Another great lesson I learned from my grandmother was something that in her day didn't have the technical name we use now. But she practiced it perfectly: sun protection. It's ironic, because I never saw her apply those modern 50 or 60 factor sunscreens we all know today. They simply didn't exist. But that doesn't mean she wasn't aware of the damage the sun could do to her skin. From as far back as I can remember, my grandmother had a golden rule: sun on the face, only just enough. She always avoided direct exposure, especially during the strongest hours of the day. If she had to go out between noon and 3 in the afternoon, she never left the house without her wide-brimmed hat. It was a light-colored fabric hat, already worn in spots from so much use, yet she cared for it like a treasure. I recall seeing her every morning before heading out, putting on that hat in front of the mirror. Sometimes she'd pair it with a cotton scarf that covered her neck and part of her décolletage. And when she didn't wear the hat, she simply sought shade. Always. When walking down the street, she'd choose the side with trees, awnings, or buildings casting shadows. Even if it meant taking a detour or walking a few extra minutes, she preferred protecting her skin over facing direct sunlight. As a child, I thought it was excessive. I wanted to run and play under the sun without a care. When I asked why she always shielded her face from the sun, her reply was simple but firm: because I want my skin to stay beautiful until I'm very, very old. And indeed, she succeeded. On hot summer days, when the heat was intense, she'd apply what she called her special cream, a homemade mix of olive oil with a few drops of rose water. It wasn't a sunscreen like we know today, but she said it formed a barrier that protected her from the sun and kept her skin hydrated. If for any reason she had to spend a long time outdoors, at village festivals or family gatherings in the countryside, she'd always sit under the biggest tree or use an improvised parasol. For her, shielding herself from the elements wasn't a trend. It was a way of life. And she didn't just avoid strong sun, she also guarded against cold, windy days in winter. She always wrapped a scarf around her neck, and on dry days, she applied a bit of petroleum jelly or cocoa butter to protect the most sensitive areas of her face. That constant awareness to shield her skin from the elements was, without a doubt, another reason why at 90 years old, her face still had that smooth texture, without dark spots, without deep wrinkles, almost like porcelain. And I think there's a great lesson there. You don't need to spend a fortune on beauty products. Sometimes just avoiding what harms you and protecting yourself consistently is enough. Now I want to tell you about another of my grandmother's great secrets. One that many people underestimate when they aim for beautiful skin, but that, in her case, was essential: good rest and stress management. My grandmother had an almost perfect internal clock. Every night, regardless of the season, dinner time, or what had happened that day, she went to sleep at the same hour, almost like it were a ritual. At 9 o'clock at night, her house was already silent. Lights were off, windows closed, and everything was calm. She had a little routine she followed almost as a sacred act. First, she prepared an herbal infusion, usually chamomile or linden, something gentle to help her relax. Then she'd sit in her favorite armchair and spend a few minutes reading. Not complex novels or stressful news, but small books of poetry, reflections, or even passages from a prayer book she'd owned for decades. When she finished reading, she would take a moment to give thanks for the day. It wasn't lengthy or complicated. She'd simply close her eyes, take a deep breath, and softly utter some words of gratitude, sometimes for simple things: the sun that had shone that afternoon, the bird's song, or even having finished knitting a scarf she had been working on for weeks. Her last habit before bed was to apply a bit of oil to her face with gentle movements, as if each night were a farewell caress before sleep. And so, day after day, without exception. She slept between 7 and 8 hours, never less. If for some reason she couldn't sleep well one night, she'd make up for it the next day with a short nap after lunch. But here's the most important part. My grandmother didn't just rest her body, she also rested her mind. She wasn't a woman who fretted about the future or spent her days worrying about what she couldn't control. If something troubled her, she talked it out, wrote it in her notebook, or let it go with one of her favorite phrases. What I can't solve today, I leave in the hands of time. That attitude of peace, acceptance, and serenity showed on her face. Her skin always had a special glow, not a glow from expensive creams, but that natural radiance only found in people who live in calm. If I had to summarize another great secret of her porcelain skin, I would say this: a peaceful skin comes from a peaceful mind. And today's science only confirms what she intuitively knew. When we sleep well, our body repairs tissues, regulates hormones, and fights oxidative stress. And when we keep stress in check, we avoid the chronic inflammation that so damages the skin. So if you ask me today what another of her great secrets was, I'd tell you, get good sleep, live calmly, and give thanks every day. Dong. We now arrive at another truth that made a difference in my grandmother's skin and health: daily movement and good circulation. She didn't go to a gym or do complicated workouts, but that didn't mean she was sedentary, quite the opposite. Each day, no matter if it was cold, hot, or cloudy, my grandmother would go out for a walk. She had a favorite route, just a few streets around her house, passing by a small park where she always greeted neighbors and paused to breathe in the fresh air. She didn't walk too fast, but neither was she too slow. Her pace was just right, enough to move her legs, get her heart going, and feel that her body was alive. I remember her often saying, "As long as I can walk, I'll feel truly alive." Beyond skin, she understood that circulation was fundamental. She knew movement helped blood flow better through the body, delivering oxygen and nutrients everywhere, even to the skin. Her face always had that healthy color and natural tone only achieved with good oxygenation, no sickly paleness or dullness. But walks weren't the only thing she did. At home, she had little movement rituals. Each morning before breakfast, she'd spend 5 minutes doing gentle stretches, raising her arms, turning her neck from side to side, rolling her shoulders in circles, and always dedicating a couple of minutes to moving her legs. She said it kick-started her circulation first thing in the morning. Even past 80 years, when many her age preferred to sit most of the day, she kept finding ways to stay active. For instance, if she spent a long time knitting or reading, she set a subtle timer to remind herself to get up every hour, take a little stroll around the house, go up and down a couple of steps, or simply stand, stretch her arms, and move her legs. She also had a habit I found very sweet. While cooking or cleaning, she'd hum or sing old songs. That small gesture didn't just brighten the atmosphere, it kept her moving constantly without realizing it. Over time, I understood it wasn't about strenuous exercise, but about not staying still, moving your body daily, even gently. Because she always said, the body is made to move, and when you stop, you wither. And she was right. Today we know movement improves venous return, boosts the lymphatic system, and helps eliminate toxins, all of which directly impact the skin. Good circulation means better nourished, better oxygenated skin with that natural glow we all seek. So if you ask me today what another of her secrets was, I'd tell you, walk, stretch, and stay active every single day. No excuses. Now I want to talk about something we often forget when thinking about skincare. That my grandmother's true beauty secret wasn't only in what she put on her face, but in what she carried in her heart. Yes, her character, her outlook on life, her optimism, and her daily gratitude, all of that showed in her face. She had something special, a light, a serene expression, as if life, no matter how hard, could never snuff out her smile. And don't get me wrong, her life wasn't always easy. Like anyone, She faced tough times, loss, illness, economic worries, family problems. But there was something in her that made her different, how she faced challenges. When hard times came, she'd say, "This too shall pass." Then she'd do what she did best: live, move forward, find the positive side, give thanks for the good, however small. I remember once when I was a child, I asked how she could always be so cheerful. She smiled, stroked my hair and said, "Sweetheart, life isn't always easy, but the face you put on life, you choose that." And she certainly did. Every morning, before heading out for her walk or starting to cook, she'd pause for a moment in front of the mirror and gift herself a smile. She said it reminded her skin there was reason to be happy. She was a grateful woman for sunrise, for a hot cup of tea, for birdsong. She always found something to be thankful for, and that, over the years, showed in her skin. Yes, she had those little age-typical wrinkles, but they were smile lines, evidence of having smiled a lot and of having truly lived. Her skin never looked dull or sad. It had that special glow only gratitude and happiness can give, even amidst life's storms. People who knew her always said, "Your grandmother has that beauty you can't buy, the kind only a well-lived life gives." And it's true. Skin reflects how you live inside. If there is bitterness, anger, constant sadness, it eventually shows on your face. But if there's joy, kindness, gratitude, that shows too. Her secret, as I told you at the start, wasn't just in what she put on her skin, but in what she carried in her heart. So if you ask me today what I learned from her, I'd say without hesitation, care for your skin, but care even more for how you live. Because luminous, life-filled skin starts with a calm mind, a grateful heart, and a smile that never gives up. Jahek. And now that we've reached the end of this journey, let's take a moment together to review everything we've learned. My grandmother's radiance, her porcelain skin we all admired, was not the result of miracle creams or costly treatments. It was the outcome of simple yet consistent habits she maintained for decades, and that you can start adopting today. First truth, the importance of daily care. She never skipped her routine, washing her face with lukewarm water, using natural products, and above all, never going to bed without cleansing her skin. Small gestures that, over the years, made all the difference. Second truth, natural ingredients. No harsh chemicals or unpronounceable brand names. Olive oil, honey, milk, rose water. Her kitchen was her beauty lab. Thanks to that, her skin breathed health. Third truth, nutrition. Skincare isn't just external, but internal too. Fresh fruits, vegetables, healthy fats, plenty of water, and collagen-rich foods. What you eat today becomes your skin tomorrow, and in her case, it showed beautifully. Fourth truth, her relationship with the sun. Never exposing her face without protection, hats, scarves, seeking shade. She understood the sun can be friend and foe if you're not careful. Fifth truth, good rest. Sleeping at regular hours, evening rituals of calm, prayer, reading, or simply giving thanks. Rested skin is happy skin. Sixth truth, staying active. No gym required, daily walks, household chores, constant gentle movement. That kept her circulation alive and her skin vibrant. And finally, the seventh truth, perhaps the most powerful, her inner beauty. Joy, gratitude, that unwavering smile, even in grey days. All of that shone through her skin. Because as I said, skin reflects your inner life. So if you're wondering whether it's still possible to care for your skin, boost your well-being, and look better every day, the answer is clear. Yes, it's never too late to start caring for yourself, your skin, and your emotional health. You don't have to do it all at once. Begin with one small change. Better nutrition, a more consistent cleansing routine, a little extra rest. Whatever it is, just start. Now I want to know about you. Which of these secrets do you already practice? Or which would you like to start applying today? I'd love to read your answer in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, if it inspired you even a bit, I invite you to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss upcoming content. Here, we'll keep sharing tips, stories, and truths to help you live better and feel better, inside and out. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.